The massive warship hung in space like a predator waiting to strike. Inside its steel corridors, Commander Zixtar of the Crothan Empire stood before a holographic display. His 4 arms crossed over his armored chest as he studied the blue planet below. Earth, the newest addition to their conquest list. Such a primitive world, Zixtar said to his second-in-command, Velkor. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. Look at them, still fighting among themselves with chemical weapons and primitive nuclear devices. They haven't even mastered proper energy weapons. Velkor's scaled head nodded in agreement. The scouts report their military forces are divided into hundreds of different groups. They call them countries. How foolish to waste resources fighting each other instead of uniting against real threats. The bridge crew laughed at this observation. The Crothan Empire had been unified for over 3,000 years. They had conquered 17 star systems, each one falling within months of first contact. Their plasma weapons, shield technology, and combat armor made them nearly invincible in ground combat. Send the message, Zixtar commanded. Tell these humans they have 1 rotation of their planet to surrender. If they refuse, we begin the harvest. The communication went out across all Earth frequencies. Every television, radio, computer, and phone received the same message simultaneously. A towering figure appeared on every screen. Commander Zixtar in his full battle armor, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. People of Earth, the translator converted his words into every human language. I am Commander Zixtar of the Crothan Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 24 of your hours to surrender unconditionally. Lay down your weapons and submit to Crothan rule. Those who cooperate will be allowed to live as servants. Those who resist will be eliminated. The message repeated 3 times before cutting off. In the United Nations building in New York, world leaders gathered in emergency session. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals filled the assembly hall. Panic and argument filled the air as they tried to process what had just happened. We need to respond with everything we have, shouted the Russian delegate. Launch all missiles at their ship. That's suicide, countered the British Prime Minister. We don't even know if our weapons can penetrate their shields. We saw what their scouts did to our fighter jets. They swatted them like flies. The American president stood quietly in the corner, speaking softly into a secure phone. Unlike the others, he wasn't panicking. He was making a very specific call. High above Earth, Zixtar watched the chaos through intercepted communications. Look at them scramble, he said with amusement. They argue and debate while their doom approaches. No unified response, no coordinated defense. Cowards, all of them. Sir, a technician called out. We're detecting military movements across their planet. Should we begin targeting their bases? Not yet. Zixtar waved a dismissive hand. Let them gather their forces. I want them to see how futile resistance is. When we crush their strongest warriors, the rest will surrender without a fight. But something strange was happening that the Crotans didn't notice. While the public military forces made obvious movements, other forces were moving in complete silence. No radio chatter, no electronic signatures, no satellite tracking. Groups of soldiers who had trained their entire lives for impossible missions were getting very specific orders. In a nondescript building in Virginia, a man known only as Control stood before a wall of monitors. Each screen showed a different special operations team preparing for deployment. Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Marine Raiders, Green Berets, and other units whose names were never spoken aloud. Gentlemen, Control spoke into his headset, addressing team leaders around the world. The situation is as follows. Hostile extraterrestrial forces have demanded Earth surrender. Conventional forces cannot penetrate their shields. However, our intel suggests their ground forces, while heavily armored, are still biological. They breathe, they bleed, and, most importantly, they can die. On one screen, a team leader with a scarred face and eyes that had seen too much responded. Rules of engagement, sir? There are none, Control replied. The President has authorized Protocol 7. You are weapons-free. Your mission is simple. Make them afraid of the dark. The scarred soldier smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Copy that, Control. The Boogeymen are going hunting. Back on the Crothan ship, Zixtar was growing impatient. Earth's 24 hours were nearly up, and the planet's response had been disappointing. Some nations had launched missiles that bounced harmlessly off their shields. Others had sent fighter jets that were swatted down by point defense lasers. Many were calling for surrender. Prepare the ground forces, Zixtar ordered. We'll take their capital cities first. Once they see Crothan warriors in combat armor marching through their streets, any remaining resistance will crumble. The dropships launched from the warship's belly like steel rain. Each one carried 50 Crothan warriors in full combat gear. Their armor was a masterpiece of technology, powered exoskeletons that enhanced strength and speed, energy shields that could stop most projectile weapons, and plasma rifles that could melt through steel. The first drop ship landed in Washington, D.C., crushing several cars as it touched down on the National Mall. The ramp lowered, and Crothan warriors poured out, their plasma weapons glowing with deadly energy. Captain THYXX led the assault force. He was a veteran of 12 planetary conquests. His armor bore the marks of victories against species far more advanced than these humans. He expected another easy victory. Form up, he barked in Crothan. Standard sweep pattern. Eliminate any resistance. Secure government buildings. Remember, these primitives still use projectile weapons. Your shields will stop their bullets easily. The warriors spread out across the mall, their heavy footsteps crushing the carefully maintained grass. In the distance, they could see human military forces setting up defensive positions. Soldiers in simple cloth uniforms crouched behind concrete barriers, aiming rifles that looked like antiques compared to Crothan technology. THYXX laughed through his helmet communicator. Look at them, hiding behind stone like their ancestors. Begin the advance. The Crothan line moved forward with mechanical precision. Human soldiers opened fire, and, just as predicted, the bullets sparked harmlessly off energy shields. The aliens didn't even bother taking cover. Return fire, THYXX ordered casually. Plasma bolts seared through the air, melting concrete barriers and sending human soldiers diving for cover. It was a slaughter. The conventional forces fell back, dragging wounded comrades with them. Sir, one of THYXX's warriors reported. The humans are retreating. Should we pursue? Let them run, THYXX said. We'll secure the government buildings first. Signal the ship. Tell Commander Zixtar that Earth's capital is falling without significant resistance. But as the Crothans advanced, something was wrong. The city was too quiet. Where were the civilians? Where were the panicking crowds that usually fled before conquering armies? They found out when the first warrior disappeared. Specialist Kryn was on the squad's flank when it happened. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. No sound, no energy discharge, no warning. Kryn, report position. THYXX called over comms. Silence. Squad 2, check Kryn's last position. 3 warriors moved to investigate. They found Kryn's body in an alley. His throat had been cut through a gap in his helmet seal. His plasma rifle was missing. His armor's power core had been removed with surgical precision. What kind of primitive can do this? One warrior asked, fear creeping into his voice. Before anyone could answer, the lights went out. Every street light, every building light, every electronic display. Darkness fell across the city like a blanket. Thermal vision, THYXX ordered, trying to keep calm. Form defensive circle. Through their helmet displays, the Crothans could see heat signatures. But something was wrong. There were too many. They were everywhere, on rooftops, in windows, moving through sewers beneath their feet. Then the whispers started. They came from speakers hidden throughout the city, a psychological warfare tactic as old as human conflict. Soft voices speaking in dozens of languages, but the Crothan translators caught the meaning. They bleed. They die. We are the things that hunt monsters. Welcome to our world. Ignore their primitive scare tactics, THYXX shouted. We are Crothan warriors. We have conquered Dash, His words were cut off by a scream. Another warrior down, this one with a blade buried in his neck joint. The attacker was already gone, melted back into the darkness. Sir, motion signatures everywhere, but we can't lock on. They're using some kind of thermal masking. Impossible. These primitives don't have that technology. But they did. Every Special Forces unit on Earth had been preparing for this possibility for decades. While politicians debated and conventional forces trained for conventional wars, the Shadow Warriors had asked different questions. How do you fight an enemy with superior technology? How do you kill something that seems invincible? The answer was simple. You don't fight fair. From rooftops, snipers with specially modified rifles fired tungsten penetrator rounds designed to punch through tank armor. The rounds found weak points in Crothan armor, joint seals, helmet visors, power core housings. From the sewers, demolition experts set off shaped charges that sent fragments upward through the street, bypassing shields designed to stop threats from the front. From the shadows, operators trained in decades of warfare moved like ghosts, using knives, wire, and stolen plasma weapons to take down warriors 3 times their size. We're down to 30 warriors, someone screamed over comms. Where are they? THYXX spun in a circle, plasma rifle sweeping for targets. His superior technology meant nothing if he couldn't find an enemy to fight. These humans weren't standing in lines to be shot like civilized warriors. They were hunting from the darkness like predators. A figure stepped out of the shadows 20 meters away. A human soldier, but unlike any they had briefed on. This one wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. His face was painted in patterns that broke up his features. He carried a Crothan plasma rifle, taken from the dead. I am Master Sergeant Jake Reaper Collins, the human said, his voice amplified through speakers. United States Army Special Forces. You came to our world. You threatened our families. That was a mistake. THYXX raised his plasma rifle, but the human was already moving. The stolen plasma weapon in his hands fired with deadly accuracy, targeting the weak points his teams had identified. 3 Crothans fell before they could return fire. Kill him, THYXX screamed. But Collins was already gone, vanished back into the darkness. And he wasn't alone. All around the Crothan position, more figures emerged from shadows. They fired and moved, never staying still long enough to be targeted. The ship, a warrior cried. Call for orbital support. Communications are jammed. The tech specialist reported panic in his voice. They're using our own equipment against us. It was true. The first Crothan casualties hadn't just been killed. Their equipment had been studied, reverse-engineered, and turned into weapons against them. Human hackers, given alien technology to work with, had found vulnerabilities in systems the Crothans thought were secure. Up in orbit, Commander Zixtar watched his tactical display with growing concern. The icons representing his ground forces were going dark one by one. What's happening down there? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Communications are being jammed. Last report indicated they were under attack by unknown forces. Unknown? They're fighting primitives with projectile weapons. But on Earth, those primitives were anything but primitive. In Moscow, Spetsnaz operators used thermobaric weapons in confined spaces, creating pressure waves that crushed Crothan warriors inside their armor. In London, SAS teams used industrial cutting lasers to slice through alien armor like paper. In Tokyo, ninja-trained special forces used ancient techniques with modern weapons, turning the city into a death trap. The pattern repeated in every city where the Crothans landed. Conventional forces would engage first, seeming to retreat in disorder. Then, when the aliens advanced confidently into urban environments, the real warriors would strike. Back in Washington, Captain THYXX was down to his last 10 warriors. They had formed a tight circle, weapons facing outward, shields overlapping. But it wasn't enough. Captain, one of his warriors said quietly, we should surrender. Crothans do not surrender. THYXX roared, but he could hear the fear in his own voice. A new voice echoed through the darkness. Female this time. Captain THYXX, this is Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Ghost Martinez, Joint Special Operations Command. You have two options: surrender and be treated according to the Geneva Convention, or continue fighting and discover why humanity's children check under their beds at night. We are Crothan warriors, THYXX shouted back. We have conquered 17 systems. We do not fear death. Death. Martinez's laugh was cold. Death would be merciful, Captain. We've had 24 hours to study your biology. Our chemical weapons specialists have been very creative. Did you know your species has a remarkable sensitivity to certain neurotoxins? The pain would be extraordinary. One of THYXX's warriors dropped his weapon. I surrender. Traitor. THYXX turned to shoot his own warrior, but stopped when he felt the laser dot on his helmet. Your choice, Captain, Martinez said. Your pride or your life. One by one, plasma rifles clattered to the ground. The mighty Crothan warriors, conquerors of worlds, raised their forearms in surrender. From the shadows, human special forces emerged. They moved efficiently, disarming and restraining the aliens with practiced ease. Captain THYXX stared at his captors in disbelief. These were not the cowardly primitives they had expected. These were predators in human form. As he was led away, THYXX heard one of the humans speaking into a radio. Control, this is Ghost. Washington secure. The Boogeymen send their regards. Back on the Crothan warship, Commander Zixtar stared at impossible readings. In 6 hours, Earth's primitive defenders had killed or captured 70% of his ground forces. The surviving warriors were sending panicked reports of humans who moved like shadows, struck without warning, and showed no mercy. Sir, Velcor approached carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider our strategy. These humans are not what we expected. Zixtar's 4 hands clenched into fists. Prepare the second wave. Full battalion this time. And implement orbital bombardment of their military bases. Sir, they have population centers near those bases. Civilian casualties would be dash. I don't care about their civilians. These primitives need to learn the price of defying the Crothan Empire. But Earth's defenders had anticipated this escalation. In hidden bunkers around the world, fingers hovered over very special buttons. Weapons that the public didn't know existed. Technologies reverse-engineered from crashed UFOs, studied in secret for decades, waiting for exactly this moment. The war for Earth had only just begun, and the Crotons were about to learn why humans had survived every predator, every disaster, every challenge their world had thrown at them. They were about to learn why human children were taught about the monsters in the dark, because humans had become something worse than monsters. They had become the Boogeymen. The Crothan warship's command center had never felt so cold. Commander Zixtar stood rigid before the tactical display, watching as more ground force indicators blinked from green to red. Each lost signal represented 50 of his finest warriors, soldiers who had conquered worlds, who had never known defeat. Analysis complete, Commander, the ship's tactical AI announced. Ground forces have encountered organized resistance using unconventional warfare tactics. Enemy combatants are employing stealth technology, electronic warfare, and precision strikes against armor weak points. Impossible, Zixtar muttered, but the evidence was undeniable. On the main screen, drone footage from the planet's surface showed the aftermath of battles. Crothan warriors lay dead in patterns that spoke of ambush and calculated violence. Their armor had been stripped, weapons taken, equipment salvaged with disturbing efficiency. Sir, Communications Officer Jaxtel spoke up, his voice tight with concern. We're receiving a transmission from a planet. It's from our own communication equipment. Put it through. The screen flickered to life, showing a human face. Not a politician or general, but a soldier with eyes like chips of ice. Behind him, captured Crothan warriors knelt with their hands bound. Commander Zixtar, the human spoke in accented but clear Crothan. I am Colonel Marcus Stone, United States Marine Corps Special Operations. I wanted to personally thank you for the equipment donations. Your plasma weapons are quite effective when turned against your own forces. You dare mock the Crothan Empire? Zixtar ruwarid. Release my warriors immediately, or I will glass your cities from orbit. Stone's expression didn't change. Try it. See what happens. The transmission cut off, leaving Zixtar fuming. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their major population centers. Fire warning shots. Let them see what dash. Alarms suddenly screamed through the bridge. The tactical display lit up with new contacts, hundreds of them, rising from Earth's surface. Sir, detecting massive launch signatures. The humans are firing everything. From hidden silos, secret submarine bases, and classified facilities, Earth unleashed its hidden arsenal. Not just conventional ICBMs, but weapons that have been developed in absolute secrecy. Missiles equipped with salvaged alien technology, experimental railgun projectiles, and things that the general public would never know existed. Shields up. Point defense online. Sixtar commanded. The first wave of missiles struck the Crothan shields and detonated harmlessly. Zixtar began to laugh. Fools! Did they think their primitive weapons could dash? The second wave hit differently. These missiles didn't explode on impact. Instead, they released clouds of nanobots that began eating through the shield frequencies, analyzing and adapting. Within seconds, small gaps appeared in the defensive barrier. The third wave carried EMP warheads specifically tuned to Crothan electronics, a frequency discovered through careful study of captured equipment. Lights flickered across the warship as systems struggled to compensate. And then the fourth wave arrived. Kinetic kill vehicles moving at significant fractions of light speed, launched from mass drivers hidden in Earth's mountains. They punched through the weakened shields like bullets through paper. The warship shuddered as impacts tore through its hull. Alarms wailed as atmosphere vented into space. Damage report. Sixtar demanded. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Weapons systems offline. Shields at 30% and falling. How? How'd they know exactly where to strike? The answer came in another transmission, this time from a different human. An older man with silver hair and knowing eyes. Commander, I'm General David Mitchell, NORAD. Did you really think we've spent the last 70 years just looking at the stars? We've been preparing. Every UFO sighting, every weather balloon, every classified encounter, we learned. We reverse-engineered. We adapted. And we waited for someone like you to make the mistake of underestimating us. Down on Earth's surface, the second wave of Crothan drop ships faced a very different reception. Instead of landing in cities, they were directed by damaged navigation systems to what seemed like clear landing zones. The navigation errors weren't accidents. Human cyber warfare specialists had been busy. Lieutenant Commander Kresh led the battalion assigned to secure North America's eastern seaboard. His 1,000 warriors were veterans, equipped with heavy assault armor and vehicle support. They landed in what their computers identified as central Pennsylvania farmland. The moment their drop ships touched down, Kresh knew something was wrong. The ground was too perfectly flat, too conveniently clear. His suspicions were confirmed when the first drop ship exploded. Buried charges detonated in sequence, each one carefully placed to maximize damage. The explosions weren't meant to destroy, they were meant to disable, to trap, to funnel the survivors into kill zones. Ambush. All units, defensive formation. But it was already chaos. From hidden bunkers, human forces opened fire with weapons that shouldn't exist. Rail guns that accelerated projectiles to speeds that punched through Crothan armor like tissue paper. Directed energy weapons that overloaded shield generators. Chemical weapons designed specifically for Crothan biology. And leading the assault were the operators everyone had started calling the Boogeymen. They moved through the smoke and flames like demons, never where the Crothans expected them to be. Where regular soldiers fought from cover, the Boogeymen turned warfare into art. They used the Crothans' own assumptions against them, exploiting every weakness in doctrine and equipment. Sergeant Major David Hades Thompson had been Delta Force for 15 years. He'd hunted terrorists in mountains, extracted hostages from fortified compounds, and done things that would never make the history books. But this was different. This was the job he'd trained his whole life for. His team of 12 operators moved through the Crofton formation like a scalpel through flesh. They didn't fight, they hunted. Each kill was precise, calculated to cause maximum psychological impact. They left bodies displayed in ways that would terrify the survivors, used captured voices to issue false orders, turned the Crothin's own command structure into chaos. Hades, this is Overwatch, his earpiece crackled. Drone footage shows heavy armor moving to your sector. For walkers, plasma cannon configuration. Copy, Overwatch. Vulture team, you in position? Ready to party. Came the drawled response from a sniper team 2 kilometers away. Got eyes on the walkers. Those joints look mighty exposed. The Crothin walkers were impressive machines. 3 meters tall, heavily armored, carrying weapons that could level buildings. On 17 conquered worlds, they had been unstoppable. They lasted less than 30 seconds. Armor-piercing rounds found joint servos. Thermite charges dropped from mini-drones melted through top armor. One walker's pilot made the mistake of opening his hatch to get better visibility. A sniper's bullet ended him before he could blink. Push them south, Thompson ordered. Hammer team is waiting. The Crottins fell back in disorder, exactly as planned. They thought they were retreating to safety. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared kill box where Marine raiders waited with captured plasma weapons and murderous intent. Lieutenant Commander Kresh watched his battalion dissolve. These weren't soldiers fighting soldiers. This was prey being hunted by apex predators. Every tactical doctrine, every battle plan, every assumption about warfare crumbled in the face of an enemy that simply refused to fight fair. Sir, his aide screamed, the humans are jamming our communications with the ship. We can't call for orbital support. Then we fight our way out. All units converge on my position. We'll punch through their lines, and Kresh never finished the sentence. The sniper's bullet took him through the left eye socket, the one spot where his helmet's armor was thinnest. His body hadn't even hit the ground before his second-in-command suffered the same fate. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. In the Australian outback, SASR operators used the vast desert to wage hit-and-run warfare, turning the environment itself into a weapon. Crothin warriors died of heat exhaustion when their armor's cooling systems mysteriously failed. Others vanished into the desert, only to be found days later, their bodies bearing signs of horrors that made even veteran soldiers sick. In the Amazon, Brazilian special forces and indigenous warriors worked together, using knowledge of the jungle that went back millennia. Crothin scouts would enter the green hell and simply disappear. Those few who made it out spoke in terrified whispers of shadows that moved wrong, of warriors who wore the forest like a second skin. The Swiss turned their mountains into a fortress of death, using precision and preparation to devastating effect. Every pass was mined, every approach covered by hidden bunkers. The Crotins learned why a small mountain nation had remained unconquered for centuries. But perhaps the most terrifying were the Russians in Siberia. They didn't just kill the invaders, they broke them. Using a combination of psychological warfare, chemical agents, and sheer brutality, they turned proud Crothin warriors into whimpering shells. Videos leaked onto galactic communication networks, showing aliens who had conquered worlds begging for mercy in broken voices. Back on the warship, Zixtar watched his great invasion fall apart. The tactical display showed a disaster beyond comprehension. Of the 5,000 ground troops deployed, less than 800 remained combat effective. Most of those were trapped, surrounded, or actively fleeing from human forces. Sir, Velcor approached hesitantly. Perhaps we should consider withdrawal. We can return with a larger fleet, properly prepared for no. Zixtar slammed his fist on the command console. We are Crotins. We do not flee from primitives. With respect, sir, these are not the primitives we expected. Their military capabilities far exceed our intelligence estimates. They've been preparing for this. They knew we were coming. It was true, though Zixtar refused to accept it. Earth's governments had hidden the truth from their populations, but they had never stopped preparing. Every piece of recovered alien technology had been studied. Every possible invasion scenario had been wargamed. Every Special Forces operator had been trained for this exact situation. Deploy the Devastator Core, Zixtar ordered. Full orbital drop. I want 10,000 warriors on that planet within the hour. Sir, that's our entire reserve force. If we commit them and lose Dash, we will not lose. These humans got lucky, caught us off guard. But when they face the full might of the Crothan Empire, they will break. But even as the orders went out, things were happening that Zixtar didn't know about. In the depths of Earth's oceans, submarines carrying very special passengers moved toward their targets. In orbit, satellites that had seemed like simple communication relays revealed their true purpose. And in a bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, fingers hovered over buttons that would unleash weapons the galaxy had never seen. The first phase of Earth's defense had been to show the invaders that humans weren't easy prey. The second phase was about to begin. And this time, the Boogeymen weren't just going to defend. They were going to attack. Master Chief Petty Officer Kyle Neptune Rodriguez had been a Navy SEAL for 20 years. He'd operated in every environment on Earth, from Arctic ice to tropical jungles. But this was a first, leading an assault team onto an alien warship. His team of 8 operators sat in a modified submarine, checking equipment that seemed like science fiction. Stealth suits reverse-engineered from recovered alien technology. Plasma cutters that could slice through whole metal. And, most importantly, a computer virus designed by the NSA's best hackers, ready to turn the warship's own systems against it. 2 minutes to target, the submarine captain announced, deploying countermeasures. The sub had been specially modified with salvaged alien tech. It could mask its signature, slip through sensor nets, and get close enough to the warship for the next phase. Remember, Rodriguez told his team, we're not here to fight fair. We're here to win. These bastards threatened our families, our world. Time to return the favor. The operators nodded, faces hidden behind advanced combat masks. Each one was a veteran of impossible missions, chosen for this operation because they were the best at what they did. And what they did was wage war in ways that gave nightmares to nightmares. Contact in 30 seconds. Good luck, Neptune. Rodriguez grinned beneath his mask. Luck's for amateurs, Captain. We've got skill and bad intentions. The submarine's specially designed launch tubes opened. 8 figures in black emerged into the Pacific Ocean, but they didn't swim. Micro-thrusters built into their suits propelled them upward, toward the massive shape of the Crothan warship hovering in low orbit. The Crothans thought they were safe in their floating fortress. They thought wrong. Earth's defenders had spent decades preparing for this moment, and the Boogeymen were about to show the galaxy why humans had clawed their way to the top of their planet's food chain. Not through superior technology or overwhelming firepower, but through sheer bloody-minded determination and a willingness to do whatever it took to protect their own. The aliens had called humans cowards. They were about to learn what humans called courage, the kind that looked fear in the eye and decided to attack anyway. As Rodriguez and his team approached the warship's hull, he activated his throat mic control, Neptune. We're knocking on their door. Copy, Neptune. Happy hunting. Rodriguez placed a shaped charge against the hull. In a few seconds, they'd either be inside the enemy ship or scattered atoms in space. Either way, they'd show these alien bastards that threatening Earth was the worst mistake they'd ever made. The charge detonated silently in the vacuum. The hull breached, and 8 of Earth's most dangerous warriors entered the ship that thought itself untouchable. The hunt was about to begin in earnest. The breach in the Crothan warship's hull sealed automatically behind Rodriguez and his team, emergency force fields snapping into place. They found themselves in a maintenance corridor, dimly lit by emergency lighting. The ship's artificial gravity pulled them to the deck as their suits' systems adapted. Astro, guess a map, Rodriguez ordered quietly. Petty Officer First Class Amy Astro Chun was already working, her suit's interface connecting to the ship's network through the breach point. 60 seconds, she whispered back. Their security is good, but not good enough. The team formed a defensive perimeter, weapons ready. They weren't carrying conventional firearms. Those would be useless against Crothan armor. Instead, each operator carried weapons specifically designed for this mission. Plasma weapons stolen and improved upon, monofilament blades that could cut through molecular bonds, and specialized explosives that turned metal into superheated gas. Got it, Chin announced. Command deck is 4 levels up, 800 meters aft. But I'm seeing something else. They're preparing to deploy their entire reserve force. 10,000 warriors. Not if we have anything to say about it, Rodriguez growled. Python, Demo, you're with me. We're heading for their deployment bay. Astro, Wraith, Ghost, Reaper, command deck is yours. Disable their control systems. Viking, float between teams as needed. They split without another word. For Shadows moving toward the nerve center of the ship. 3 toward the staging area where thousands of Crothan warriors prepared to rain death on Earth. 1 operator melting between both teams like smoke. In the deployment bay, Commander Graxtor addressed his assembled warriors. The Devastator Corps were the elite of the elite, each warrior genetically enhanced and equipped with the best technology the Empire possessed. Brothers, his voice boomed through the massive chamber. The humans have shown unexpected resistance, but they are still primitives. When we deploy, show no mercy. Burn their cities, scatter their armies, break their spirit. For the Empire! For the Empire! 10,000 voices roared back. Graxtor was about to continue when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. Then, the deployment bay doors began to close. Technical malfunction, a technician reported, attempting to override. But it wasn't a malfunction. 3 levels down, Demolitions Specialist Carl Demo, Washington worked with surgical precision. Every charge placed exactly where it would cause maximum damage to critical systems. The Crothans built their ships tough, but they followed patterns. And patterns could be exploited. Demo, you done playing? Rodriguez's voice crackled through comms. We've got company coming. 30 seconds, Demo replied, placing the last charge. This is going to be biblical. Python, Sergeant First Class Jake Morrison, was already in position. The sniper had found an elevated maintenance platform overlooking the deployment bay. Through his scope, he watched Crothan warriors mill about in confusion as their equipment malfunctioned. I count 40 officers, he reported. Want to start the party? Negative. Wait for Demo's fireworks. Then, we thin the leadership. On the command deck, for Boogeymen carved through the ship's defenders like a hot knife through butter. The Crothans were trained for stand-up fights, for honorable combat between warriors. They weren't prepared for enemies who struck from ventilation shafts, who used holograms and misdirection, who turned their own ship into a weapon against them. Astro had plugged directly into the command systems, her fingers flying across haptic interfaces as she wrestled with alien code. Their cybersecurity is actually impressive, she muttered. But they made one mistake. They assumed any intrusion would come from outside. How long? Ghost asked, standing watch. Lieutenant Maria Ramirez had earned her call sign by being impossible to track, impossible to predict. Even now, she seemed to flicker in and out of visibility as her suit's adaptive camouflage worked overtime. 5 minutes to own their primary systems. But I can cause havoc right now. Do it. Astro grinned and executed a subroutine she'd prepared. Throughout the ship, artificial gravity reversed itself for exactly 3 seconds. Thousands of Crothans suddenly found themselves falling towards ceilings, then crashing back to the deck. Equipment scattered, formations broke, and chaos reigned. In that moment of confusion, Demo's charges detonated. The explosions weren't meant to destroy the ship. That would kill the humans too. Instead, they were precisely calculated to cripple specific systems. Power conduits feeding the deployment bay doors melted. Environmental controls for the warrior quarters failed. Most critically, the launch mechanisms for drop ships twisted and warped, becoming expensive metal sculptures. What is happening? Graxtor roared as his warriors struggled to maintain order. His answer came in the form of a plasma bolt that took his head off. Python worked methodically, each shot removing another officer, another senior NCO. Leadership disappeared in puffs of superheated gas. The Crothan warriors, trained to follow orders, found themselves without anyone to give them. They milled about in growing panic as their command structure evaporated and their equipment failed around them. On the bridge, Commander Zixtar watched his ship tear itself apart from within. Every attempt to regain control met with failure as human viruses propagated through systems the Crothans had thought secure. "Seal all sections," he ordered. "Activate internal defenses." "I'm trying, sir." The tech specialist's four hands danced over controls. "But the humans have inserted some kind of adaptive virus. It's learning our protocols faster than I can change them." Velcor stepped forward. "Commander, we must consider the unthinkable. These humans have capabilities beyond our comprehension. We should negotiate." Zixtar's plasma bolt took Velcor in the chest, sending the second-in-command crashing to the deck. "There will be no negotiation. No surrender. We are Crothans." But his bravado was interrupted by the bridge doors exploding inward. Four figures in black entered, weapons tracking for targets. Before the bridge crew could react, stun grenades filled the air with blinding light and deafening sound. When Zixtar's vision cleared, he found himself face to face with a human warrior. The figure removed their helmet, revealing a scarred face with cold, predator eyes. "Commander Zixtar," Rodriguez said calmly, "on behalf of Earth, you're under arrest for crimes against humanity. You have the right to remain silent, but I really hope you don't. You dare." Zixtar reached for his sidearm, but froze as three weapons tracked to his head. "I wouldn't," Rodriguez advised. "My people are a little twitchy. See, you made a classic mistake. You judged us by our technology level and our political divisions. You never asked the important question." "What question?" Zixtar snarled. "How did a species with no natural weapons, no armor, no claws or fangs, become the apex predator of their world?" Rodriguez smiled, and it was all teeth. "The answer is simple. We cheated. We used tools, tactics, and, most importantly, we worked together when it mattered." Throughout the ship, Crothan warriors were discovering this truth firsthand. Human operators moved through corridors like ghosts, striking and vanishing. They used the ship's own systems against its defenders, venting atmosphere in some sections, reversing gravity in others, turning the warship into a house of horrors. But the real shock came when Earth revealed its true hand. "Sir," a Crothan sensor operator on the bridge called out, his voice cracking with fear. "Detecting massive energy signatures from the planet. They're launching something." The main screen activated, showing Earth from orbit. Across every continent, hidden facilities opened like flowers blooming. What emerged defied Crothan understanding. Ships. Human warships that shouldn't exist. Vessels incorporating decades of reverse-engineered alien technology combined with human innovation. They weren't pretty like Crothan vessels. They were brutal, functional things built for war. The lead ship was designated Enterprise X, though its crew called her the Nightmare. 2 kilometers of armor and weapons, she rose from a hidden base beneath the Pacific Ocean like a metal leviathan. Her captain, Admiral Sarah Chun, had waited 40 years for this moment. Every drill, every simulation, every sleepless night had led to this. "All weapons online," her tactical officer reported. "Targeting solutions locked on the Crothan vessel." "Open a channel," Chun ordered. Zixtar's command screen lit up with a new transmission. A human woman in military uniform gazed at him with eyes that had seen too much and decided to see more anyway. "Commander Zixtar, I'm Admiral Chun, Earth Defense Command. You're probably wondering how we have ships. The answer is simple. We've been expecting you. Maybe not you specifically, but someone like you. Every crashed UFO, every weather balloon, every mysterious encounter. We learned from them all. More ships rose from Earth. 20, 50, 100. Some were massive battleships, others nimble fighters. All were armed with weapons that blended human ingenuity with alien technology. Impossible, Zixtar whispered. You're primitives. You fight among yourselves. You can't have this technology. Chen's smile was cold. That's what we wanted you to think. Yes, we fight among ourselves. It's practice. We've been preparing for the real enemy. Anyone who threatens our entire world. And you walked right into it. In the deployment bay, the Devastator Corps faced a new problem. The human saboteurs had sealed them in, but that wasn't the worst part. Environmental systems had been reprogrammed. The temperature was rising rapidly. "Break down those doors," a surviving officer ordered. Warriors fired plasma weapons at the sealed entrances, but the humans had welded additional armor plating in place. The bay was becoming an oven. Python watched through his scope as proud warriors began to panic. "Rodriguez, they're getting desperate down here. Might try something stupid." "Let them," came the reply. "Earth Command just gave us the word. The cavalry has arrived." Indeed, the first human warship was already docking with the Crothan vessel. Not gently. The ship literally rammed docking clamps through the hull, creating its own entry points. Marines in power armor poured through the breaches, weapons designed specifically to fight Crothans leading the way. These weren't special operators like the Boogeymen. These were conventional forces equipped with humanity's secret weapons. Railguns that made Crothan plasma weapons look like toys. Armor that incorporated stolen shield technology. Combat drugs that pushed human reflexes beyond biological limits. The Crothans had expected to fight primitives. Instead, they faced an enemy that had taken the best of alien technology and improved it with human creativity and sheer bloody-mindedness. In the deployment bay, temperatures reached critical levels. Warriors began collapsing, their enhanced biology no match for the improvised furnace. Those still standing fired desperately at walls, sealing anything that might provide escape. Demo watched his handiwork with professional satisfaction. We could offer them surrender. "We could," Rodriguez agreed. "But they didn't offer us that courtesy. Let them cook a little longer. Maybe they'll learn some humility." On the bridge, Zixtar watched his empire crumble. Reports flooded in from across Earth. The ground forces he'd been so proud were either dead, captured, or in full retreat. His warship was infested with human warriors who fought without honor, without rules, without mercy. "You're monsters," he accused Rodriguez. "No," the human replied. "We're survivors. Our ancestors fought ice ages, predators, disasters, and each other. We didn't make it to the top of our food chain by being nice. We made it by being adaptable, clever, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. The Empire will send fleets," Zixtar threatened. "Hundreds of ships. You'll be overwhelmed." Rodriguez laughed. "Let them come. Every ship they send is more technology for us to steal and improve. Every warrior they lose is a lesson in how to kill the next one more efficiently. We're not just defending Earth. We're sending a message to your empire and anyone else watching." "What message?" "Don't fuck with humans." The systematic destruction of the Crothan invasion force continued. In the deployment bay, temperatures finally dropped as Demo opened emergency vents after 90% of the Devastator Corps had succumbed. The survivors surrendered immediately. Their warrior pride melted away along with their courage. Across Earth, captured Crothans were processed according to Geneva Convention protocols, something that surprised them greatly. They expected torture, execution, the things they did to conquered worlds. Instead, they found medical treatment, food, and interrogation that focused on intelligence rather than pain. But perhaps the greatest shock came when Earth's media finally reported the truth. Cameras showed human warships surrounding the crippled Crothan vessel. Special Forces operators became instant celebrities as footage of their operations leaked. The world learned they had never been as helpless as they thought. In Moscow, President Volkov raised a toast with other world leaders via secure connection. To the Boogeymen, he said in accented English, "May our enemies always underestimate us." To never fighting fair, the American president added. To human ingenuity, the British Prime Minister chimed in. Across Earth, similar toasts were made. The planet had united in the face of external threat, showing that for all their differences, humans could work together when survival was at stake. Back on the Crothan ship, Rodriguez received new orders. "Neptune, this is Control. Secure the commander for transport. Earth Command wants to have a word with him." Copy that. Rodriguez turned to Zixtar. Time to go meet your new hosts. Word of advice? Be polite. Some of them lost family in your attacks. They're not as professional as we are. As Zixtar was led away in restraints, he passed viewports showing his crippled warship surrounded by human vessels. Each one was ugly, functional, and absolutely lethal. They were the products of paranoid preparation and desperate innovation. In his last moments on his own bridge, Zixtar realized the truth. The humans hadn't just defeated the Crothan invasion. They'd been waiting for it. They prepared for it. They'd turned his people's arrival into an opportunity to reveal their true strength. The cowards he'd expected to conquer easily had turned out to be the most dangerous warriors his empire had ever faced. Not because of their technology or numbers, but because of something far more terrifying. They had learned to weaponize fear itself. And they called their warriors Boogeymen for a reason. They were the monsters that even monsters feared. As Earth's fleet prepared to send a message to the Crothan Empire, one thing was clear. The galaxy had just learned why humans dominated their world, and why they were about to dominate much more than that. The Crothan Empire's High Council chamber had never hosted a meeting like this. The massive holographic display at the center showed impossible images. Their mighty invasion force defeated, their advanced warship captured, their commander in chains. But worse than the images were the voices. Survivor testimonies played on repeat, each one more disturbing than the last. Proud Crothan warriors spoke in broken whispers of humans who hunted in darkness, who turned technology against its users, who fought without honor or rules. The word boogeymen came up repeatedly, spoken with the kind of fear usually reserved for nightmares. Silence, Supreme Commander Thaxtor ordered, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. I will not tolerate this cowardice. They are primitives who got lucky, nothing more. Lucky! Council member Vrix leaned forward, her forearms gesturing at the display. They destroyed 90% of our ground forces. They captured a Dominator-class warship. They have Commander Zixtar. And now they're sending a message, added Council member Jorik. Every emergency beacon from our destroy drop ships has been reprogrammed. They're broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. The chamber's audio system activated, filling the space with a human voice. It was calm, professional, and somehow more terrifying because of it. Attention, Crothan Empire. This is General David Mitchell, Earth Defense Command. Your invasion force has been neutralized. Your commander is our prisoner. Your technology has been acquired and improved upon. This was your only warning. Any further aggression against Earth will result in proportional response. We're not conquerors like you. We are defenders. But if you force us to attack, you will learn why we call our warriors boogeymen. They're the monsters that hunt monsters. In transmission, the message repeated in perfect Crothan, then in 16 other galactic languages. The implications were clear. Earth had broken their translation systems, understood their communications, and wanted everyone to know it. They dare threaten us? Thaxtor slammed his primary fist on the council table. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will show these primitives the true might of no. The voice came from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. A figure stepped forward, Intelligence Director Krixtar, the Empire's spymaster. You haven't read my full report. What report? Krixtar manipulated his handheld device, and new images appeared. Blurry photos of human ships, technical readouts, intercepted communications. The humans didn't develop this technology in response to our invasion, he said quietly. They've had it for decades. Hidden, waiting. My analysts believe they've been reverse engineering crashed vessels since before they achieved nuclear power. Impossible. Is it? Look at their history. They've been killing each other with increasing efficiency for thousands of years. Every war taught them new ways to destroy. They turned conflict into science. And when they thought threats might come from the stars, more images appeared. Secret facilities, underground bases, evidence of a civilization that had been preparing for invasion while pretending to be divided and primitive. They wanted us to underestimate them. Krixtar continued. Their media their public face, all carefully crafted deception. Behind it, they united their best minds and warriors to prepare for exactly this scenario. Council member Vrix studied the data. You're saying they've been pretending to be primitive? Not pretending. They are primitive by our standards. But they're also something we've never encountered, a species that weaponized paranoia. They assumed invasion would come and prepared accordingly. Every nation contributed to secret programs. Every military trained special forces for this specific threat. These Boogeymen, Jorik asked, they're elite warriors, selected from already elite units, trained in methods that would be considered war crimes on most worlds. They don't just kill enemies, they traumatize them. Several of our survivors are catatonic, unable to speak of what they experienced. The chamber fell silent. In their entire history of conquest, the Krothans had never encountered anything like this. Species either surrendered to their technological superiority or fought honorably and lost. None had turned warfare into psychological torture. Back on Earth, the victory celebrations were muted. In a secure facility beneath Geneva, world leaders gathered around their own holographic display. The mood was serious despite their success. Ladies and gentlemen, General Mitchell addressed the assembly. We won the first round, but this is far from over. Intelligence suggests the Krothan Empire spans dozens of systems. They'll be back. Then, we hit them first, suggested General Petrov of Russia. Use capture navigation data to strike their supply bases, colony worlds. Make them afraid to leave their home systems. With respect, Admiral Chun interjected, we're not conquerors. Our strength comes from defending our home, not attacking others. The Admiral's right, the American president said. But we need to ensure they never threaten Earth again. I propose we send a diplomatic mission. Several leaders laughed, but the president continued. Not to negotiate surrender, to show them what they're really dealing with. Let them meet our warriors face to face. Let them understand that invasion means extinction. In a detention center where captured Krothans were held, something strange was happening. The aliens were being treated well, too well by their standards. Medical care, decent food, even entertainment. It confused and disturbed them more than torture would have. Commander Zixtar sat in his cell, staring at the human guard outside. The young Marine stood at attention, professional and alert. Nothing like the Boogeymen who had captured him, but somehow just as unsettling in his calm competence. Why? Zixtar finally asked. The Marine glanced at him. Why what, sir? Why treat us well? We came to enslave your world. The Marine considered this. Because we're not you. We fight hard, but we're not cruel without purpose. Besides, you're more valuable alive. Our scientists are learning a lot from talking to your people. You're studying us? Of course. Know your enemy. First rule of warfare. The Marine paused. Though I guess you're not enemies anymore. You're prisoners of war. Different rules apply. This concept baffled Zixtar. The Krothans had no such distinctions. Enemy was enemy until dead or enslaved. These humans compartmentalized violence in ways that seemed insane. His confusion grew when a human officer arrived, Colonel Stone, one of the warriors who had first mocked him via transmission. Commander Zixtar, I'm here to inform you that Earth's government has decided to return you to your empire. What? You and 100 other prisoners will be sent back as messengers. You'll carry our terms and a warning about what happens if your empire attacks again. You're releasing us? Stone's smile was cold. We're sending you back to spread fear. Your warriors will see what we did to you. They'll hear your stories. They'll understand that we could have killed you all, but chose not to. That kind of restraint, that kind of control, it's more terrifying than any atrocity. He was right. When the transport ship arrived at the Krothan border, carrying broken warriors and horrifying stories, the psychological impact was devastating. Warriors who had conquered worlds spoke fearfully of humans who turned warfare into art, who killed with precision and purpose, who showed mercy only to prove they could. The returned prisoners were debriefed extensively. Their stories painted a picture of a species unlike anything in known space. Humans who fought without honor when threatened, but treated prisoners with dignity, who built weapons of terrifying power but used them with restraint, who united only when faced with external threats, but turned that unity into unstoppable force. Most disturbing were the videos the humans had included, not of battles or weapons, but of their warriors in training. Boogeymen moving through kill houses with inhuman efficiency. Regular forces conducting exercises that would break most species. Children playing war games that taught tactics and strategy from early age. They trained their young for war. One survivor reported. Not just soldiers, all of them. They call it sports and games, but it's combat preparation. They're all potential warriors. The Empire's analysts struggled to process this information. How did you fight a species that turned everything into warfare? That treated combat as both science and art? That had spent its entire evolution preparing for threats? The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Telex of the Gorvani Confederation, one of the few independent powers in the sector, requested audience with the High Council. "I've studied these humans," he said, his elongated form swaying as he spoke. "You made a fundamental error. You saw their divisions and thought them weak. You saw their technology and thought them primitive. You never asked why they survived. Explain," Thaxtor demanded. "Earth is what we call a death world. High gravity, tectonic instability, extreme weather, aggressive fauna. Most sentient species evolve on paradise worlds. Humans evolved in hell. Every day of their existence was a fight for survival. They didn't just adapt to warfare, warfare adapted to them. So we should fear these primitives?" Council member Jorek scoffed. "You should respect them. They're offering peace. Take it. The Crothan Empire does not negotiate with Dash. With what? Inferiors? They captured your warship. Primitives? They reverse engineer technology faster than some species invented. Cowards? They assault superior forces through vacuum, wearing nothing but engineered fabric and determination." The ambassador's words hit home. Several council members exchanged worried glances. "What do you suggest?" Brix asked carefully. "Accept their terms. Trade with them. Learn from them. Because if you fight them again, they won't just defend. They've shown they can reach your ships. What happens when they decide to reach your worlds?" The debate raged for hours, but the conclusion was foregone. The returned prisoners' testimonies had spread through military ranks like wildfire. Warriors who had never known fear spoke in whispers about human boogeymen. Recruitment numbers plummeted as citizens learned what happened to the mighty invasion force. On Earth, preparation continued despite diplomatic overtures. The captured Crothan technology was distributed to research facilities worldwide. Within months, human ships were being upgraded with improved shields and weapons. The Boogeymen expanded their training programs, preparing for threats that might not come for years. In a secure conference room, Master Sergeant Collins, the scarred veteran who had first introduced himself to the Crothans, briefed new recruits to the program. "Listen up, people. We won this round, but the galaxy's full of threats. Some will come as conquerors like the Crothans. Others might come as friends hiding knives. Our job is to be ready for all of them." A young operator raised his hand. "Sir, why do they call us Boogeymen?" Collins grinned. "Because every species has nightmares. Things that hunt in darkness, that can't be stopped by walls or weapons. We become those nightmares. We're what alien warriors check under their beds for. Isn't that wrong? Making them afraid? Fear keeps them from attacking. Fear protects Earth. And if being monsters in their stories keeps our families safe, then I'll wear that title with pride." The room fell silent as his words sank in. These weren't just soldiers. They were Earth's immune system, designed to make invasion too costly to attempt. Weeks later, the Crothan Empire's response arrived. A massive diplomatic vessel approached Earth orbit, broadcasting peace signals on all frequencies. When the airlocks opened, Ambassador Crixtar emerged, the same intelligence director who had warned against further conflict. He carried a ceremonial staff that he laid at General Mitchell's feet in a gesture of respect. "The Crothan Empire formally withdraws all claims to Earth and this system. We seek coexistence." "Just coexistence?" Mitchell asked. For now. Perhaps in time more. Your species has much to teach us about warfare. We have much to offer in technology and trade. But first, we must learn to see you as equals, not primitives. And the rest of the galaxy? Crickstar's 4 eyes showed what might have been amusement. The story spreads. Beware the humans, they say. They fight without honor and win. Some call you monsters. Others wonder if you might be allies against greater threats. Greater threats? The galaxy is vast, General. The Crotons are not the worst of what lurks between stars. But, perhaps, with humans standing guard, the darkness might think twice before advancing. As negotiations began, and the galaxy adjusted to humanity's emergence as a power, one truth became clear. Earth's greatest weapon wasn't technology, or numbers, or even the Boogeymen who haunted alien nightmares. It was the simple fact that humans had turned survival into an art form. They had weaponized everything from fear to mercy, from division to unity. They were the species that looked at impossible odds and asked, how do we cheat? And in a universe full of predators, they had become the apex predator not through strength, but through being willing to do whatever it took to protect their own. The Crotons had called them cowards. They had learned that human courage simply looked different. It was the courage to fight dirty, to prepare obsessively, to unite when threatened, and to show mercy from a position of strength. It was the courage to become monsters so their children could sleep safely. And that was why the galaxy would learn to fear the dark. Because in the darkness waited humanity's Boogeymen, and they were always ready to hunt. 5 years had passed since the Crothon invasion, and the galaxy had changed forever. Earth's orbital space, once empty save for primitive satellites, now buzzed with activity. Human warships patrolled alongside trading vessels from a dozen species. The planet that had been marked for easy conquest had become a hub of diplomatic and military power. In the United Nations Space Command headquarters, Admiral Chin stood before a tactical display showing the entire sector. Green dots marked allied worlds, yellow showed neutral systems, and red indicated potential threats. There were far fewer red dots than 5 years ago. Ma'am, her aide reported, the Vorthan delegation has arrived. They're requesting military advisors. Chin smiled grimly. The Vorthans were the latest species to swallow their pride and ask for human help. Their colonies were being raided by pirates using stolen Crothon technology, and conventional tactics weren't working. Send them to Conference Room 3, and have Colonel Stone meet them there. The Vorthans specifically requested Boogeymen advisors, ma'am. Of course they did. Everyone wanted the Boogeymen now. The warriors who had turned Earth's defense into legend had become the galaxy's most requested military consultants. Fear had transformed into respect, and respect into desperate desire for alliance. In Conference Room 3, the Vorthan delegation waited nervously. They were tall, spindly beings with crystalline skin that changed color with emotion. Currently, they flickered between orange, anxiety, and purple, hope. Colonel Stone entered, and the Vorthans immediately shifted to yellow, the color of awe. Stone had become famous throughout the sector, his name spoken in whispers by those who remembered the first footage of human warriors in action. Ambassadors, Stone greeted them formally. I understand you have a pirate problem. Colonel Stone, the lead Vorthan's translated voice quavered. These pirates use guerrilla tactics. They strike without warning, disappear into asteroid fields, attack supply lines. Our military doesn't know how to fight such dishonor. Stone almost laughed. 5 years ago, aliens had called human tactics dishonorable. Now they beg to learn them. Show me your tactical data, he said simply. As the Vorthans explained their situation, Stone recognized patterns. The pirates had studied human tactics from the Crothon War, trying to copy Boogeymen methods. But they'd missed crucial elements. Your problem, Stone explained, is that they're imitating our tactics without understanding our philosophy. They're using fear as a weapon, but not strategically. They're being cruel, not precise. What's the difference? A younger Vorthan asked. Boogeymen don't torture for pleasure. Every action has a purpose, demoralized, disorganized defeat. These pirates are just thugs with stolen tricks. They're predictable. Can you help us? Stone nodded. We'll send a training team. 6 months, and your forces will know how to fight in shadows. But understand, once you learn these methods, you can't unlearn them. Your warriors will never be the same. The Vorthans exchanged glances, their skins flickering through a rainbow of emotions before settling on deep blue determination. We accept. As the meeting concluded, Stone's communicator chimed with a priority alert. Every human officer in the building received the same message simultaneously. His expression hardened as he read it. "Excuse me, ambassadors. Something's come up." In the command center, chaos reigned. The tactical display showed something that made veteran officers pale, a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the sector. Not Crothan, not any known species. The energy signatures were all wrong, the ship designs unlike anything in the database. Analysis? Admiral Chen demanded. 300 vessels minimum, the sensor operator reported. Technology levels are significant. Energy outputs suggest weapons capability beyond anything we've seen. Communications? They're broadcasting, but it's not translating. The computer's never seen this language structure before. Chen turned to her staff. Alert all Boogeymen units. Recall our ships. And send a priority message to the Crothan Empire. They might know what we're dealing with. Within hours, responses flooded in. The mysterious fleet had appeared on everyone's sensors, and panic was spreading. Several species were already preparing to flee the sector entirely. But the Crothan's response was most troubling. Ambassador Crickstar's face appeared on screen, his 4 eyes wide with what humans had learned to recognize as terror. "Admiral Chun," he said without preamble, "you must mobilize everything. Those are the Devourers. Devourers, they consume entire civilizations. Not conquer, consume. They strip planets of all life, all resources, leave nothing but dead rock. The Empire thought them legend until now. Why haven't we heard of them? Because no one survives their attention. World just goes silent. We find empty systems years later, everything organic converted to fuel for their fleet." Chun felt her blood chill. How do we fight them? No one ever has successfully. The few who tried, there were no survivors to report tactics. Crickstar paused. "Admiral, the Empire is evacuating. I suggest you do the same." The channel closed, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Flee? Earth had never fled from anything. "Ma'am," an analyst spoke up. "The Devourer fleet is spreading out. Patrol formations. They're mapping the sector. Time until they reach inhabited worlds. At current speed, 2 weeks for the outer colonies. 3 weeks to Earth." Chen made a decision that would define humanity's place in galactic history. Send a message to all human forces. Code Black. All restrictions lifted. Prepare for total war. All restrictions, ma'am. All of them. And contact the Boogeymen. Tell them the gloves are off. Across human space, sealed vaults opened. Weapons deemed too dangerous for normal use were brought online. Research projects abandoned for ethical reasons were resumed. The careful restraint that had marked humanity's emergence as a galactic power evaporated. In a black site facility on Luna, Master Sergeant Collins received his new orders. He read them twice, then looked at his assembled team. "Ladies and gentlemen, Command has authorized Pandora protocols. We're about to show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of when survival is at stake." "Pandora, Sarge?" a younger operator asked. "I thought those were just rumors." "No rumors. We've been developing weapons that make plasma rifles look like party favors. Bioweapons tailored to xenobiology. Nanotech that can disassemble ships at the molecular level. Quantum viruses that corrupt AI systems. We locked them away because they were too horrible to use." He paused, meeting each team member's eyes. "Until now, the first contact between human forces and the Devourers came near Proxima Colony. A scout squadron led by Captain Maria Vasquez encountered 3 Devourer vessels stripping asteroids with some kind of energy beam. They're converting matter directly to energy," her science officer reported. "Incredible efficiency. They could drain a planet in days." Well then, Vasquez said calmly, let's see how they handle some human inefficiency. All ships attack Pattern Sierra. Show them why we're called Boogeymen. The battle lasted 17 minutes. Human ships didn't fight like other species, in formation, with honor, trading volleys. They swarmed like angry hornets, using micro-jumps to appear and disappear, launching weapons that bent the laws of physics. When it ended, 2 Devourer vessels were expanding clouds of debris. The third was crippled, venting atmosphere and exotic particles. Boarding teams, go, Vasquez ordered. The Boogeymen who entered the Devourer ship found something that challenged even their hardened psyches. The aliens were amalgamations of organic and mechanical parts, as if they'd been consuming technology along with biological matter. They fought with desperate fury, but human warriors had trained for worse. The intelligence gathered from that captured ship changed everything. The Devourers weren't just raiders or conquerors, they were locusts. They moved from sector to sector, consuming everything, leaving dead space in their wake. They'd done this for millennia, but they'd never encountered humans. They're predictable, Collins explained at the emergency strategy meeting. They follow optimal consumption patterns. Maximum efficiency, minimum waste. It's their strength and weakness. Weakness? Admiral Chen asked. They can't adapt quickly to chaos. Their whole civilization is about order, consumption, efficiency. We're about to introduce them to entropy. The human battle plan was insanity by galactic standards. Instead of meeting the Devourers in honorable fleet combat, they waged asymmetric warfare on a scale never before seen. Boogeymen teams infiltrated Devourer ships, not to capture but to corrupt. They introduced viruses that made systems randomly fail. They sabotaged conversion beams to feedback and destroy the ships using them. They turned the Devourers' efficiency against them. Human fleet units refused to engage in traditional combat. They struck supply lines, isolated scout ships, used the Devourers' own consumption patterns to predict and trap them. Every human loss was broadcast to the fleet, not as tragedy, but as intelligence. How had they died? What had we learned? How could that death be weaponized? The psychological warfare was even more intense. Humans had learned from the Crothan War that fear was a weapon. They refined it against the Devourers. Ships would find human bodies floating in space, positioned to spell out messages in Devourer script. Captured Devourers were returned to their fleet altered, speaking in tongues, their hybrid systems corrupted with madness. You're monsters, a Crothan observer said, watching human forces work. Yes, Chen replied simply. We are. It's why we'll win. The turning point came when humanity revealed its ultimate weapon. Not a ship or bomb, but an idea. They broadcast on all frequencies, in every known language, including Devourer. Attention, all species. Humanity declares the Devourer threat a common enemy. We offer our protection to any who stand with us. Our methods, our weapons, our boogeymen, all available to allies. Together we hunt. Divided, we're prey. The response was immediate. Species who had been fleeing suddenly stopped. The Crothans, who had abandoned 3 colonies, returned with their fleet. The Vorthans, still learning human tactics, eagerly volunteered their forces. Even species who had never interacted with humans sent ships. For the first time in galactic history, the sector united. Not under conquest or treaty, but under human leadership against a common threat. And humanity shared everything: tactics, weapons, intelligence. They turned the entire sector into students of human warfare. The Devourers, faced with organized resistance for the first time in millennia, faltered. Their efficient patterns broke down when every species fought with human-taught chaos. Gordian knots of ambushes, false intelligence, and psychological operations tangled their fleet movements. The climactic battle happened near Earth itself. The Devourer main fleet, desperate to crush the source of resistance, committed everything to a direct assault. 300 ships against Earth defenders, and a coalition fleet learning to fight like humans. It was a massacre, but not the kind the Devourers expected. Human ships unveiled weapons that shouldn't exist. Black hole generators that created micro-singularities inside enemy vessels. Quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple states until they decided which one would cause maximum damage. Nanoswarms that converted Devourer ships into more nanoswarms. But the true horror was the Boogeymen. Operating from stealth craft, they boarded Devourer command ships during battle. What they did aboard those ships became legend. Devourer crews, beings that had consumed countless civilizations, were found huddled in corners, driven mad by whatever they'd experienced. They turned our efficiency against us. One captured Devourer managed to communicate before its hybrid systems failed. They made chaos into weapon, made fear into science. They're not prey. They are apex. The battle ended with the Devourer fleet broken, scattered. Those who escaped spread word through their collective consciousness. Avoid the human sector. The prey there had become predator. In the aftermath, as coalition forces celebrated, Admiral Chun addressed the gathered species. 5 years ago, you called us cowards, primitives. Today we stood together against monsters, and we won. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through what makes us human: adaptability, cooperation, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. She paused, looking at the assembled aliens who now regarded humans with mixture of respect and fear. The galaxy knows us now. We are Earth. We are humanity. Cross us, and we become your nightmares. Stand with us, and we become your guardians. The choice is yours. The Crothan ambassador stepped forward. The Empire formally requests permanent military alliance with Earth. We offer technology, resources, territory. The Vorthan Federation seconds this request, their representative added. One by one, every species present pledged alliance. Not from love or admiration, but from practical recognition. Humans were too dangerous as enemies and too valuable as allies. Later, in a quiet moment, Colin stood on the observation deck of Earth Station 1, looking down at the blue planet below. A young recruit approached hesitantly. "Sergeant, I heard what we did to the Devourers. Some people are saying we went too far, that we became worse than monsters." Collins was quiet for a moment. "Maybe we did, but those monsters would have consumed every living thing in this sector. Sometimes, to fight monsters, you have to become something worse. You have to become their nightmares. Does it bother you? Being feared. Being feared keeps Earth safe. It keeps our allies safe. If the price of peace is being the boogeyman under the galaxy's bed, I'll pay it gladly." The recruit nodded slowly, understanding dawning. This was humanity's burden now, to be the guardians that everyone feared but everyone needed. The species that had turned warfare into art and mercy into weapon. As the galaxy settled into new patterns, with Earth as unofficial protector of the sector, stories spread through trade routes and communication networks. Tales of human warriors who could appear from nowhere, who fought without honor but never without purpose, who showed mercy to prove they didn't have to. Children of 100 species grew up with new nightmares, not of monsters that consumed worlds, but of humans who had defeated those monsters by becoming something worse. And when those children asked why humans were so frightening, their parents would tell them, because humans learned that in a universe full of predators, the only way to survive is to become the apex predator. They weaponized everything: fear, chaos, mercy, even madness. They became the boogeymen so that others could sleep safely. And in the darkness between stars, human ships patrolled, not as conquerors or raiders, but as guardians. Watchers who had embraced monstrosity to protect those who couldn't or wouldn't. The Crotons had called them cowards. The galaxy now called them necessary evils. Humanity called themselves survivors. And in the end, that's all that mattered. Earth endured. Humanity thrived. And the galaxy learned that the most dangerous species wasn't the one with the biggest weapons or the most ships. It was the one willing to become whatever it took to protect their own. The boogeymen were no longer just Earth's monsters. They were the galaxy's monsters now. And everyone slept a little better knowing that those monsters were on their side. Because in a universe full of threats, sometimes you needed monsters. Sometimes you needed beings willing to fight dirty, think twisted, and turn warfare into nightmare fuel. Sometimes you needed humans. And that's why, throughout the known galaxy, when alien children misbehaved, their parents would whisper, "Behave, or the humans will come." And they don't fight fair. It was the truth. Humans didn't fight fair. They fought to win. They fought to survive. They fought to ensure that their children would never have to. They had become the Boogeymen. And the galaxy, for all its fear, was grateful. Because when the next threat came from the darkness between stars, and it would come, everyone knew who would stand against it, who would fight without honor, without rules, without mercy. The humans would. Earth's children, who had looked at a hostile universe and decided to become more hostile still, who had turned fear into shield and nightmare into sword. The cowards who had become kings of monsters. The primitives who had become protectors. The Boogeymen who guarded the galaxy's sleep.